Hi, thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you all for joining, and thank you all for joining a talk on standardizing UX research. I know that doesn't sound that exciting, but I will do my best to make it exciting. So we'll get right into things. I know we only have 20 minutes. Just a quick intro of what I'll be discussing. I'll briefly introduce myself, talk about kind of what the importance of talking to users and different stages of UX teams and how that kind of manifests itself in different structures of UX research teams. So brief introduction about me. I do come from an academic background. So I know a lot of folks in the UX field come from very eclectic backgrounds. There are sort of more traditional human-computer interaction backgrounds. But I come from an academic research background. This is some of the research that I did at the Institute of Transportation Studies, where I got my MS in transportation, and some of the publications that I worked on and the research that I worked on there. I talk about this as a way to kind of reflect on how I got into UX. So I come from an academic UX background, wanted to get into sort of a research space in tech, and found UX research as a great way to kind of complement my experience. And so just a quick overview of my career trajectory. I started off as a research coordinator at Google, and then a research associate at Waymo, and then a UX researcher as well as an ops manager. So I did help with the ops management at Lyft, the operations that are associated with UX research. And then my current role here as a senior UX researcher. And I think a lot of folks probably within joining this talk may have a question as to how I made that transition from academia into UX. And my answer to that is that what I did was that I started off by joining in as a contractor at these specific companies. So the companies here in the box are the ones that I joined as a contractor. And I think that's a great way to introduce yourself into the UX space, to understand if it is a value to you, and something that you're interested in continuing, and a great way to kind of network and get to know other folks in fields that you would potentially want to kind of grow within. So just wanted to kind of give that quick overview of how I transitioned into UX, in case it's sort of beneficial to anybody. And I will get right into what I wanted to speak about today. So just talking about research as a researcher, we understand that basic research is about talking to users. So within a UX space, within a product space, the sort of the crux is that talking to users and conducting user research is essential for creating products to meet user needs that are easy to use and have a greater chance of being adopted and successful. So setting up processes allows everyone to benefit from talking to a user. And so to prevent that sort of ad hoc talking to users and have a sort of a structured, standardized process in connecting to users. So the first layer of the onion is talking to the user. If we simplify it, that first layer is just talking to a user. That surface level way to learn about products is to just simply talk to a user, why they use a product, how they use a product, who they are. And within Square, where I'm currently at, our users are sellers. So people and people building products for people. And so this next layer is understanding a user's needs, goals, and behaviors. Digging a little deeper, we learn where within Square, we learn where sellers' pain points are, what are their goals as a business and as small business owners. And then that where you're sort of trying to get to, that crux, is to understand a user's pain points and address them. Building a seller-focused culture for us at Square across all functions in Square banking. And then that center, that sweet spot here is where we want to get to continue to build empathy. And so when we're talking about research, and we've all probably seen sort of this similar structure, and we're understanding like at what stage should research get involved in? The short answer is research can be engaged at any point in the product development cycle. From foundational, so learning about people and their problem space, to generative research, where it's kind of prioritizing challenges to solve and focusing more on the solution space, and then that evaluative research where you're more tactical and iterative. And so research is not meant to be kind of a one-off service, but rather part of sort of an overall process. Ideally, we incorporate research at all of these stages, but both when we know what to build and when we can have something we're iterating on. So how can we do that? By standardizing research and having and normalizing research's impact. So where you want to be and where it's okay to be. So we know that research structures in different companies can be very different, and that's okay. So research can kind of have impact at any stage. So I have this sort of oversimplified structure of where you'll find yourself as a UX researcher jumping into a company. So sometimes you're the sole researcher, sometimes you're in a mid-sized team, 2 to 5 researchers, and sometimes you're a fully embedded team where and this is ideally where every researcher wants to be. And there are challenges at each stage. So I'm going to kind of cover a few of them, but mostly focus in on the sort of the mid space where a lot of researchers end up being. Sole researchers, there can be it's probably the biggest challenges with a one researcher is kind of educating on how research works within your company and having impact to sort of drive growth and drive the growth of the research team, as well as prioritizing projects that will allow for that to happen. And then where we will focus today is that mid-sized team, and that's where I am at Square Banking. And the challenges here is that you may or may not have an ops person to help sort of with structuring the projects, and there's still challenges with prioritizing and balancing projects, and balancing prioritizing the right projects and consulting on other projects. So where do we start? There are 2 ways to begin to, at least the way I see it, is 2 ways to take in research. You either have a road mapping process, which you can sort of combine both of these processes, and a research intake form, because a lot of the times priorities within the company change, projects change, and it may not be, you may not stick as strictly to the roadmap as you would hope. And so we'll start with kind of like the research intake process, and including sort of this road mapping process. And what we do, at least with Square, we align research roadmap with the product roadmap. And this is, yearly, quarterly. It's not a one size fits all. It will depend on, what stage of the product you're in. And so with the stakeholder alignment process, what we do is that we meet with stakeholders. We then ask about various aspects associated with these wants, and we then kind of align on timelines, priorities, and in a general way, and we input that into a roadmap that can be referenced for all stakeholders. And then the other way to kind of intake these research requests is in intake form. And this is a lot of the times a way to sort of allow ad hoc projects that may come up outside of the road mapping process. So roadmaps change, projects pop up, and that research isn't aware of, and we want to make sure that research is always sort of aware of these projects. And so who kind of fills out these forms? It could be a product manager, it could be marketing, it could be designers, and so we have them kind of fill out sort of the background, objectives, the impact that they hope to see out of this project to allow us to see if this is a project that we would find value in partaking in. And so inputs to consider when scoping a project: the purpose. So consider whether the work is tactical, low level, reactive, or strategic. And where in the product cycle it is, whether the work is, again, low level, reactive, or whether it is kind of strategic. And so we ask these questions: why are we doing this? Why do we want to know? What do we want to know? Where are we in the product development cycle? And then we think about company priority. Who is involved? Is this a high company priority? Is this a low company priority? And then the timeline: is this something that research can actually get involved with? Does research have the bandwidth for this? Will we have time to complete this project in a time for a potential decision, and to kind of consider the amount of time and resources that this project will take away from other projects? The level of involvement: how much research support is required? Is this something that research can just kind of support in a way of like reviewing research plans or help in other ways? Or is this something that requires research's full level of involvement? And then finally, we look at the priority matrix and how does this fit into sort of that structure of a priority matrix. And when I say the priority matrix, I mean kind of defining the involvement can be impacted by this priority matrix, which we folks have probably seen before. But if the risk is high and the problem clarity is very low, that's where we would want research to focus in on as much as possible and have research heavy, because research can allow for, because of such a high risk and low clarity, research has a great place to allow itself to be a part of sort of the foundational structure of a work stream. And then finally, when we were discussing kind of like defining the level of involvement, one way to kind of structure this is to think about, a full service model versus a guidance slash partner. And finally, a consulting slash self-serve structure. So in a consulting capacity, you in a full service way structure, we'll start with that, is the researcher takes on the project from start to beginning, and takes on every aspect of the project, and including kind of the research design, whether if there's a vendor that needs to be involved in this, creation of discussion guides, recruitment, the field work, everything. And then when you're thinking about it from a sort of a guidance slash partner perspective, you may have a partner heavily involved with the research with you, whether that's a PM or a designer, who is involved with kind of the structure of the research plan, involved with taking notes and synthesizing the presentation. It's a more of a partner capacity. And then there's the consult slash self-serve model. And that's where a researcher may not have bandwidth at all to kind of take on a project. And they will advise on the research approach and review any questions, discussion guides, test plans, and help with sort of every aspect of the study, but not fully kind of complete it on their own. And then how does this work in practice? So I'm going to have a quick example here from Square. So a quick case study that I have here with Square, and this is a project that particularly came up in our road mapping process. But this the sort of the larger crux of the problem here was that multiple teams wanted to better understand the needs and perceptions and jobs to be done of upmarket sellers as it pertains to Square banking. So we started off with meeting with stakeholders, and differing stakeholders, because this is such a topic that covers different product teams. And then we scoped out, the overall sort of these different aspects that we need to consider as the inputs for scoping. So this spans multiple product teams, and it impacts kind of overall strategic, generic, and strategy early in the product development cycle. And then it can influence strategy. So, and it was also sort of a high risk and low clarity project. So it allowed me to sort of think about this as a kind of covered all of the sort of higher levels of these inputs, and made me sort of want to kind of really sort of push for research to be involved with this project and invest a lot of sort of research's time and bandwidth into this project, because of sort of it kind of hit all of the inputs. And then finally, because of that, we decided that this particular project would be a full service research project. And this project would require the full support and complexity and all the logistics. And it was sort of worth the researcher's time. And so the impact and approach of this research, what we ended up doing was we did desk research / a literature review, which you see here on the left. And then we did a question prioritization workshop with all of the differing stakeholders. And then finally, a third sort of step in this project was that we interviewed specific sellers who fell into that upmarket category. And within these 3 different stages, we presented all of this data in a research deck and did a company share out throughout these different stages, and also did sort of a final share out as we kind of went through with the different stages of this research. And then just to quickly go over other practices to build out. When we're thinking about research, we all sort of see the value of those foundational projects. But this sort of discovery, the iterative sort of launch evaluative research stage is also important. We just went through kind of a foundational strategic project, but evaluative research can be just as impactful and important, can be a major contributor to justifying the increasing of headcount and moving your team towards more researchers. So small but meaningful impact. You don't always have to take on those strategic foundational projects for full service involvement projects. So this is just a really quick overview of other ways to expand your research toolkit, to document new processes, create those research templates, and onboard research tools and vendors that you can easily access when needed. And finally, advocating for research throughout research findings, whether that's research decks, newsletters, and a research repository. And finally, research readouts. And that's it. Kind of gets you to that stage of making yourself sort of that much closer to that goal of being a fully embedded researcher.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And you finished just in time. So everybody got to hear your whole talk. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And thank you to everyone watching. And we will see you in the next session.